right as we were coming up on the possibility of a shutdown really happening, I saw Cam Higbee, who's a conservative alt media commentator, put out a question on X, the social media platform X, and it was, is a government shutdown a bad thing? As if it was a question, that it could be like a good thing that the government shut down. This like cope that is being done to justify the bad things that are going to be done to the families who have furloughed workers, to those who are going to have to go out and work without pay because they're essential. And many of those in essential positions, they're hard workers working jobs that, they are not, like, if you work at a VA hospital, that's the veterans need medical help. Like that, I think that veterans doctors deserve pay. I think that those who work at national parks to keep the beauty of the United States, the natural beauty of it, maintained from people who would, this sounds critical, like besmirch it, damage it. I think those people deserve to be paid. And I believe that around Christmas time, when they deserve to think like, oh, I can actually buy my kid a PlayStation, or I can buy my kid a nice gift. And I'd be like, I'm sorry, but Christmas is canceled this year because people didn't want the omnibus that was negotiated, and they were very, very eager to make sure that 9/11 healthcare coverage and research into, cancers and diseases and funding for infrastructure improvements, like these things, we needed to make sure that they were out of the bill. We need to make sure that it's a small, of just a few pages. And so that's why we're going to stand out here and stop this bill from passing. But also, while we're being small government and we're advocating against this bill passing because we're against all this big fluff, like, for example, healthcare coverage for 9/11 firefighters. And when I say that, like, this is what I mean.
Calling on the administration that's coming in. We're calling on the senators and Congress people that have made their promises to honor what everyone has said, to never forget.
New York City Fire Department unions are calling for the restoration of funding to the James Zadroga 9/11 Health and Compensation Act after it was left out of Congress's funding on Friday. The act guarantees medical treatment for first responders, firefighters, and survivors who helped with the recovery efforts following the World Trade Center attack. It also provides financial compensation for those who suffered injuries, illnesses, or death as a result.
So you need to cut all that out because that's government overreach, and it's just, the bill's too big. And even if the Republicans and Mike Johnson in private agreed to that omnibus spending bill with the Democrats, it's not good that he did that in private, and his word actually doesn't matter, so we can take it back last second and now throw it into chaos, threaten to shut down. But make sure, and this is what Trump played for, make sure that even with all this, stuff to limit this government overreach, we get rid of the debt ceiling. We're going to move the debt ceiling. So don't do this government overreach so we spend stuff on cancer research and 9/11 firefighters. Don't spend on those. Don't, spend on those. Let's risk throwing veterans doctors out on their payments, furloughing these workers, scaring international investors. Let's all do that to stand up against government overreach and bureaucratic state nonsense. But also, let's get rid of the debt ceiling. Because they don't want to deal with the debt ceiling issue while Trump's in office and give Democrats leverage. They want to get rid of the debt ceiling now. The fiscal conservatives understand that if Trump was to even implement half of what he wants to, that he's going to have to go and increase the debt, just like he did during his last term, because 25% of America's national debt was accrued under the Trump term. And we have a pretty big national debt. That's a lot of money. He was a big spender. And he has promised through his policies to be a big spender in this term too, to balloon the amount of national debt even further. And that means moving the debt ceiling. But it would be easier to do it now than under Trump, with the bad PR that would come with it, along with the fact that you're going to have to negotiate with Democrats who are in the opposition and are going to be willing to block it, because moving the debt ceiling, it takes it's just a simple step. You have to get I believe a 2/3 majority. Point is, they wanted to take advantage of the moment to not only cut out all this bureaucratic nonsense because of Elon Musk's post on Twitter or whatever it was, but also to expand and move the debt ceiling to set up Trump to start implementing his policies without Democrats getting the say. That did not end up happening. But also, it did not end up happening because many Republicans, when you needed a 2/3 majority of the House, so you're not going to be able to do this without any Democrats. When some Republicans, when they needed every Republican on board, as well as some Democrats, started to jump ship like Chip Roy because they didn't like the idea of the fiscal irresponsibility of getting rid of the debt ceiling, when there's no plan on like how to stop the debt from continuing to increase, and when they've been promising, hey, we're going to get the spending under control. Now, mind you, I would say that anybody with 2 brain cells that was watching the Republican campaign in 2024 could say that fiscal conservatism is not a priority for today's Republican Party. It just isn't. Trump was a big spender. He's going to be a big spender again. And he did not really promise much on the debt this time. The first time he promised to get rid of all of the nation's debt in 4 years. Ridiculous lie. Didn't happen. He moved not at all on that. He expanded the debt. He expanded the deficit. And now he's going to probably do it again. And so for those who are in the Republican Party who actually do still care about fiscal conservatism, even though it's not a popular campaign topic anymore, he got some pushback. And mind you, Chip Roy has always been a stark Trump defender.
Fact of the matter is, $330 billion. Congratulations, you've added to the debt since you were given the majority again on November 5th. It's embarrassing. It's shameful. Yes, I think this bill is better than it was yesterday on certain respects, but to take this bill yesterday and congratulate yourself because it's shorter in pages but increases the debt by $5 trillion is asinine. And that's precisely what Republicans are doing. I'm absolutely sickened by a party that campaigns on fiscal responsibility and has the temerity to go forward to the American people and say, you think this is fiscally responsible. It is absolutely ridiculous.
Trump did not like this because, again, he needs to spend a lot for what he wants to do. And so even if it isn't the conservative main line to be fiscally conservative, he will not be in his term. He still wants to get it done now. And so he started attacking those who wanted to keep this fiscal conservative policy, this principle, and he laid into Chip Roy. Mind you, Chip Roy, huge Trump fan. The very unpopular congressman from Texas, he puts congressmen in quotation marks if he's not really a congressman, Chip Roy is getting in the way, as usual, of having yet another great Republican victory, all for the sake of some cheap publicity for himself. Republican obstructionists have to be done away with. The Democrats are using them, and we can't let that happen. Our country is far better off closing up for a period of time than it is agreeing to the things that the Democrats want to force upon us. Biden is president, and it's his obligation to properly lead. We're there to do the right thing, and we can't agree with what Biden and the Democrats are demanding. Weak and ineffective people like Chip have to be dismissed as being utterly unknowledgeable as to the ways of politics and as to making America great again. Put America first and go for the victory, even if it means shutting down the government for a period of time, furloughing those workers, sending home those doctors without pay around Christmas time, locking down some non-essential government services, spooking international investors. Just a great time all around. We had an overwhelming victory for just 4 weeks ago, and we're not going to let the Democrats forget it so quickly. So he really smacked down on those people. But in the end, the bill that ended up passing did not touch the debt ceiling whatsoever. They completely did not address the debt ceiling. So Trump did actually eventually lose on that, and enough Republicans voted with Democrats on a final bill, a trimmed down bill, without addressing the debt ceiling, to get it to pass. And since it was like a 2/3 majority, it's enough Republicans that he can't really signal anyone out in particular. But there was still some funny actions around the process that led to this passing with, I believe, literally 37 minutes to go before the government was set to shut down. For example, the room got rowdy enough that the speaker broke the gavel.
Why you shut down
There's Representative Anna Paula Luna, a big knuckle dragger in Congress.
the government, because we won't be doing it.
The House.
Furthermore, Mr. Speaker.
The House will be in order. The House will be in order. The gentlewoman is reminded to direct her comments to the chair. My colleagues are reminded to yield the floor to the gentlewoman from Florida.
My goodness. But they did fail to pass the bill that they wanted to counter with originally. And they did eventually pass a bill. No touch on the debt ceiling. It was trimmed down, but it was not the bill that they originally wanted to counter with. They had to include some stuff. For example, like emergency funding for the bill for the Key Bridge here in Maryland, in Baltimore for reconstruction. It was negotiated with Mike Johnson in private, and they fought really hard in private to make sure that a full 100% commitment to rebuilding that bridge was in the bill. And when the omnibus bill got gutted, like stuff like that had to be negotiated. But I wanted to show you guys some clips from different lawmakers around the Hill on this back and forth process and just the general mood on the Hill around this, because every time the Republicans are given the ball on the budget, it's just a mess and they're near tears.
This just stinks. That's why America doesn't trust government, and it's for good dadgum reason.
And you said shut it down.
That's what it takes to bring us to the table.
Any extra supplemental ought to stand on its own merits and not be attached to it, and it ought to have pay-fors, and the debt limit must not be increased without commensurate spending cuts and fiscal reform.
When I ran for office, I said that I would not vote to raise the debt ceiling, and so I've never voted to raise the debt ceiling. And I love Donald Trump, but he didn't vote me into office. My district did.
You want to shut it down?
I love that he has the prerequisite with I love him. Please, I love Donald Trump. I love Donald Trump. Don't punish me, please. Please, I have to have a principle or two.
District did.
You want to shut it down?
I'm not afraid of a shutdown.
And you're hearing some of those members saying they are not afraid to go to a government shutdown. So where does this go from here, Jim? It is really uncertain because...
Okay, let's look at a little bit more. I want to look at a few more of these Congress people. I love... This guy is great to watch him bounce against the CNN crew.
Will always do what I think is right, which is why, to me, the right answer here was to keep the government funded, and why I find it so jarring that every single Democrat except two voted to shut the government down, not because they didn't agree, not because they didn't. Yeah, Caitlin.
One sitting right here.
Caitlin,
Totally different reasons.
Totally different reasons.
But you still voted the same
but Caitlin,
way.
here's what I think you're missing.
I know 38 House Republicans voted against this.
Here's what you're missing.
You're counting on
Right, and
Democrats.
197 Democrats voted against it.
But the deal that they had negotiated was blown up yesterday.
They negotiated a deal that included a lot of pet projects that they wanted.
But isn't that your problem with Speaker Mike Johnson, who negotiated that deal with them?
No, look, when you have a House Republican
House
majority,
Speaker negotiated that deal, right?
Would you like me to answer, or you want to debate it? House Republican majority, Senate Democrat majority, Democrat in the White House. Where has Joe Biden been in any of these discussions? What did Chuck Schumer do in any of these discussions? Nothing. So you want to just focus on House Republicans. We put a bill on the floor today to keep the government funded. Yes, some of my colleagues voted no. Some of my colleagues have never voted for a CR and never voted to increase the debt ceiling. That's their right. But the fact is, many Democrats have always voted to pass a CR and increase the debt ceiling. And the reason they didn't do that today is because they don't want to lose leverage in the new Congress.
Can I ask you, though?
That, to me, is absolutely pathetic.
But also part of that was this deal that was...
Why? Okay, I'm sorry. Why is it pathetic? I remember The Republicans held up Merrick Garland as a Supreme Court pick. Pure politics. Republicans have done things that have been pure politics before. Why would the Democrats, who had just already worked for months to negotiate an omnibus bill with the Republicans, watch that bill get blown up on Twitter under 24 hours, then they try to come back with a totally different bill with nothing that they negotiated in it, and then it sinks, and they're saying, well, yeah, of course, we didn't want to address, the debt ceiling because we never negotiated that. We want to retain leverage in the next Congress. Oh, that's pathetic? It's pathetic to retain leverage? Get out of politics then, okay? Don't be such a massive pussy about it. This is politics. Like, it's one thing to be like, this is retaining leverage, it's pure politics. But to be a pussy about it and say, oh my God, it's pathetic that they would do... What party are you a member of? Okay? You are not a member of the American Green Party, and you're here taking some principled stance against the mechanisms behind you. You are part of a machine that would do the same thing immediately if the shoe was on the other foot. So I just don't take it seriously. Just this strong pull on the emotive language of pathetic. It's politics.
Was negotiated today was only negotiated among Republicans and not even among all Republicans, as you noted there, which has raised the question tonight about Mike Johnson's future as the House Speaker. I mean, if the vote...
Okay, one more with this guy, because he is funny. And this was a very funny Jake Tapper interview. This is the one that's stuck in my head. Got stuck in my head the most around the government shutdown.
At this moment. I certainly understand what you're saying, but at the same time, with all due respect, sir, you're going after the top Democrat in the Senate and a lame duck Democratic president. Your conference, the House Republican Conference, we go through this every single time Republicans control the House. You guys can't pass legislation. You can't govern.
Respectfully, Jake, we've actually passed a lot of
spending legislation, government funding legislation. I'm talking about government funding legislation.
We've passed a lot of legislation that has languished down the hall in the Senate,
government funding legislation. Every time we go through this,
respectfully, we passed a number of appropriations bills through the House floor. We passed all 12 through committee. We couldn't even get to a conference committee because Chuck Schumer and Senate Democrats, again, passed exactly 0 bills. So, yes, I get the at this moment.
I certainly understand what you're...
Look, honestly, post-election, I think CNN was doing better than pre-election in their coverage, and the little bit that I have seen. Their numbers right now are awful. I get like 77,000 and like during like prime primo times in the day. 77,000 is not good for one of the biggest names in cable news. Very bad numbers. But on one hand, I think it will not be received well by the people who probably most need getting shaken. Jake just openly being like, dude, what the fuck? Can you guys not legislate? But it is true. I don't know how else you're supposed to react to these people. How do you ask them eventually, like, is this what it's just going to be like every time? Every single time when we're trying to pass a budget bill, is it going to be buzzer beater, buzzer beater, buzzer beater? Oh, are we going to shut down? Are we going to shut down? Oh, we didn't shut down. Are we going to shut down? Oh, we're going to shut. Oh, we did shut down this year. Every time. Again, people are furloughed. People have to work without pay. Some people are sent home and they don't work at all. Government services shut down. National parks shut down. It shakes investor confidence in the United States. It hurts the economy. Some people might think it's like, oh, who gives a fuck? But veterans doctors deserve pay. People who work in national parks deserve pay. People who work at the different bureaus that help, like either agricultural departments or, the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, the people who just like print the money or work the machines, all these people deserve pay. And if you make these people work without pay or send them home, you're not only mistreating them, but you're mistreating the people who need to be some of the most skilled workers in the country. Those who are making the cogs of our government work. If we want to make our tax dollars at all cost effective, or we want, our government to function and work. It's not good for a country to constantly be dipping in and out of whether or not it's going to be able to fund its operations. People like, and investors like, the stability of knowing, like, oh, you know, the budget's going to be there come next year. And it keeps happening every single time. And eventually, like, I'm scared that there's going to be a crisis that we can't really quickly jump out of. And we're going to have like months and months and months and months and months and months of shutdown. And that's really going to affect a lot of workers who are dependent upon wages for, you know, their livelihoods, their rent pay. I mean, if you have to work because you're an essential worker for like 2 or 3 months without, you know, the payment coming through, it could be a real disaster for you. But it's like, it's played as if it's nothing. Maybe because I'm from the Maryland area and I know a lot of people who work in these agencies that would be affected, but it hits me a little harder, or like I think about it a little bit more. But it really is a disaster waiting to happen.
Unions just don't control people's votes like they used to.